inspired, fully engaged. You're tuning in to Reality with Vicki Gunvalson.
So this week here on Reality with Vicki, I'm so excited. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming back to the podcast. Please remember to give me 5 stars and download our podcast because that keeps us active and good with good guests like this. So this week I have Dan Pallesen. Am I saying it right?
That's right. Yep. Dan Pallesen. Yeah.
Okay. You're a financial psychologist and you're passionate about helping others live their best lives. So first of all, I've never heard of a financial psychologist. I think I'm a psychologist in my own mind, but
Sure.
You're a professional financial psychologist. So super
That's
excited
right.
to hear more about that. You're a licensed clinical psychologist and a financial advisor who focuses in the field of positive psychology and behavioral finance.
Yes.
Big title there.
Right.
Big title, Dan.
That's a mouthful.
Good. And I'm going to just ask my listeners to tune in for this next 45 minutes or so. So Dr. Dan can share how understanding what drives your money behaviors and that can help you harness your power in life to live it with a purpose. So as you know, I don't know if you know, but we started this group called Financial Wellness with Vicki, and it's really taken on its own life. It's a Facebook platform group. And what we've seen through my viewers, and you had mentioned your wife has watched the show, and so she probably understands my passion for money, finance, family, God first, my business, my family is super important to me. So when I look at that and I look at, some of the messes people get themselves into, I am encouraging and hopeful that people can take away a nugget from our conversation to be better in their life. And so we're all going through a lot of bumps right now. I do believe it's I say bumps loosely, but with this COVID and the loss of jobs and the deaths and all the things that have happened this past 12 months, I think we need to kind of give people hope that we're going to be able to get through this and come out on top.
Yeah.
I feel hopeful. I feel positive. I just, I'm going to be so excited to hear more about you. So, so you worked in the federal prisons and the Navy for 10 years before transitioning into finance. You hold a Series 65 and are studying to become a CFP. Congratulations on that. I've had struggles passing that 65.
Oh, yeah.
I've taken it twice and I missed my last exam by 2 points.
Oh,
So I'm in my 6-month window right now, but I just couldn't open those books right now. So
wow.
We'll talk about that privately afterwards. How
Sure.
to pass that thing. Anyway, you're an independent RIA, but you do not build portfolios. You currently serve as a chief investor of behavior at Keystone Wealth Partners, where you train advisors how to have better conversations with their clients. Dr. Dan, tell me, I am all ears because for me as an advisor for 32 years, it is a psychological relationship that we're dealing when we're dealing with clients. It's personal. I always feel like as a woman, I have a little bit more sensitivity.
Yeah.
I tend to touch my ladies and my men at their hands and just say, you're going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of it. When you pass away, this will happen. Your children will call me, so I kind of set a plan out. But it's not easy. It's not an easy career, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
tell me a little bit about this whole journey of being in the federal prisons and everything.
Oh my goodness. I would love to. I'd love to. And I know you kind of laid it all out there and we can jump in any area, but I just want to say, I can imagine for a client sitting across from you and feeling your connection with them and your empathy as they're talking about money. And what we know that even those of us that are the most, confident and we feel comfortable talking about money, if you hooked us up with a bunch of sensors and measured like our heart rate and our sweat glands and our body temperatures, even those of us that are comfortable have a stress response just when talking about money. It's just such a hot topic for so many people. So to have you there warmly comforting them, I imagine does wonders for the client. So that's so huge. You mentioned you're kind of a practical psychologist in your own life, and I would imagine with your clients as well. It's such an important piece to have. So we were even just this morning, I was leading a discussion with the financial advisors that I work with at our company. We were just talking about the importance of the soft skills of empathy. And our firm, like a lot of firms, tends to have more men in the role of financial advisor. We do have women that are advisors, and they're fantastic. But it seems like with the men, we really need to work a little harder about just having better empathy and better soft skills. There's the hard skills of constructing a portfolio and managing, the financial planning software, all of that. But to just be able to feel what that other person is feeling in the moment and be able to affirm that and make recommendations out of that, it's worlds better than just having, a solid financial plan on paper.
Right.
So all that to say, that's a compliment to you and
Thank
your
you.
approach to financial
Thank
planning.
you. Thank you. Because as a woman, when I remember years ago, and even most recently, you go to these awards, and I go with my spouse, my partner, my fiance, and they're always going, because he's got a name tag, they're going to congratulate him on being a top producer.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, it's over here. He's a retired cop, So it's an interesting conversation, because then they're like, oh, did you never get married? Did you never have children? No, I married and I had children and I raised my kids and I was a single mom and I did that, plus got my education, and I became an advisor 32 years ago. So I'm 59 now. And what's interesting is how fast life goes. How old are you?
I'm 30. How old am I? 37, 38.
Okay.
30.
So my son is 35. So he graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder with a psychology degree. Ooh. And he never wanted to get into my business. And he's one of the best salesmen now because of that degree. He understands the movement and the conversations of life insurance or disability insurance and things like that. So what I want to say about my age, because I just had a birthday last week, is how fast
happy late birthday. Yeah,
I love celebrating my birthday. Is how fast life goes. And I was sitting talking to Steve the other day, and I just said, he's retired, he's 62, my fiance, and I said, you were a cop for 30 years and now you're retired, and what's it like for you being retired? He goes, it just went so fast. And so I think for us as advisors is to teach and educate clients that in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s are going to determine how you are in your 60s and your 70s and your 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't be smart in every dollar that you spend and save and make, you are going to be in a problem at 60s, So
right.
I think that's one nugget that our listeners can take away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're creating financial habits right now. You're also just creating habits with how you manage your time. And if you're someone who's like in the mindset of, I'm just going to work so hard for the next 30 years and build up this nest egg, I've seen people that have done that then shift into this this retirement phase, and they can't turn it off. They can't enjoy retirement that they've been working so hard to get to, because the habits that they've created for themselves is just work, and not be in the moment, to be present and connect with family and whatever the beauty that life has for them.
And I worry about that. I personally worry about that because I've only known work since I was 14.
Yeah.
So when you look at, I don't have a hobby. I don't play tennis. I don't chase balls. I don't golf. I don't play racquetball. I don't have a hobby. My hobby is my work and my family. So I see what you're saying there about the psychological behavior of working, or let's say you were a stay-at-home mom the whole time and now your husband retires and now he's home with you all the time and you're like, well, I don't really want him home with me.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to get deep into the behavior of finance and the psychology behind it, because I think it is a big deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'll share just briefly about where I came from. And like I said, you did lay it out well. But yeah, when I was in my 20s, when I was an undergrad, I was a psychology major, and I was one of Bleeding Heart University. I just cared deeply for people. I wanted to make a difference in the world and just help people. And I thought I could do that best by becoming a psychologist, becoming a counselor. So that's what I pursued. So when I was going through undergrad and then my graduate school, my vision was to be a clinical psychologist doing individual therapy and group therapy and couples therapy. And that's what led me into working in the federal prison system. It was an internship right out of my graduate school that then led into a career. So I was doing treatment in prisons with inmates, mostly men, some women, but mostly men. And I found, there was a lot of good work to do there. Obviously, a lot of these people are in, they've hit rock bottom, and you're meeting them literally at rock bottom. But for so many of them, a lot of their circumstances in life or their distress came from not knowing how to manage money, and even their criminal behavior was tied to, trying to make money or trying to provide for themselves or trying to chase this dream that they had, that they thought that maybe their criminal activity was the only or the best way to get to it. But they were literally trading time for money. We talk about that in a 9-to-5 job. You trade time for money and the grind of that. But with our inmates, a lot of them were, sentenced to serve years and years of their time because of the activity that they were in. So all that to say is I enjoyed the work there, but I also found a lot of times I just wanted to sit down with them and build a budget for them and their family, or talk about the power of saving and investing, especially if I was meeting with someone young, a 19-year-old. It's like you have your whole life ahead of you and you're making these terrible decisions that are going to, last with you your whole life.
Impact them forever. So maybe they were stealing a car, or maybe they were, wire fraud, theft, all these different things that can happen that they're desperate and they think that's the way that they can survive. But
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
And
a lot from that.
Yeah, exactly. So I enjoyed the work that I got to do in the federal prison. I decided to leave, and I ended up working with the U.S. military for a bit, for about 5 years, just as a contract psychologist. And what I was doing there, I was called a behavioral health consultant. So I was working in a medical clinic. So I was working alongside medical doctors and nurses and physicians' assistants. But I was kind of brought in for the psychological piece. But we weren't doing deep therapy. It was more, let's look at your day and your routine and just help you have a better routine, that's healthier and will improve your well-being overall, as it is in alignment with your, the medical recommendations made by the doctor. So it was a lot more practical. And that's what I found. I just really like to help people in a practical way. I like to see results. I like to be practical. And that just opened the door for finance. I had a connection with a friend who owns a big financial advisory firm, who invited me in and said, we would love to hire another financial advisor, but I think someone with your background, the psychology piece would be such a great fit. And for me, it was a way to help people both from an empathic background, but also to be very practical in setting up some tangible goals for them to pursue. So I can go into more detail if you'd like, but that's kind of is what led me into.
I love it. I have to stop you one moment, because you used the word a couple times, empathic. And I've done a ton of research on personal friends of mine that are not empathetic. Narcissist, empath. I did a bunch of research on those people, and those are tough people to either employ, be friends with, or have as clients. Because if they want to use up my time, or 2 or 5 or 10 visits and calls and this and that, but they don't want to engage me as an advisor, they are not respecting me as an advisor and as a professional. So I have to learn, obviously, to cut them off, just like I'm sure you have, is because they don't have empathy, or they're just users. And when you're seeing people, I'm sure that you have through your paths of education, that's a tough place to be, is if you're not empathetic, and then if you're dealing with people that are not empathetic.
Absolutely. I think it comes with some life experience. Again, when I was starting out in my 20s, I wanted to help everybody, had a very big heart. And so I was in a position a lot of times, both in personal relationships and clinically, where I was wanting and willing to give, but the person on the other end was just take. And that's draining. And I didn't realize it at the moment, but it was like, days or weeks later after interactions, you just feel so drained, and you're like, I identify as a positive, upbeat person. Right. Why am I so miserable right now? Why am I so disgruntled right now? And it's because, at least for me, was giving so much in these relationships where it wasn't reciprocated on the other end. And for me, I had to learn, I never want to shut off my empathy. I want to be available for people and meet them where they are, but I also need to recognize who's there just taking, and who's there, wanting to actually meet me and go deeper. And for those that are taking, you have to build up, some good boundaries and some walls. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's in relationships too, I've had a lot of friends that are going through some struggles right now. And I think COVID has caused a lot of relationships to be tested. But when that happens in relationships where you give, and you don't see the partner reciprocating, then you become empty. And then I call it my love tank's empty, you know? I don't know if you saw
I love
that on
that.
the show, you know?
Yes, yes.
When my love tank's empty, nobody's happy.
I am all about love tanks. And for me, I don't know if we came to this from the same place, but I love the book, The 5 Love Languages. And they talk a lot about we give and like to receive love in different ways. And we have a love tank. And if ours is empty, we can't, you know, it's like the empty tank on a car. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to break down.
I love your positive attitude, because there's not a lot of advisors, I think, that understand the emotion of money, the behavior of money. So how do you think that our emotions influence our money behavior? So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So you cannot get them untangled. You know, like, traditional economic models were built on this assumption that human beings will act rationally when they're investing or when they're making decisions. And what we found out is, like, we're not rational, we're emotional. We can count on that. We're consistently emotional, but we have to account for the fact that humans have and experience and express emotions. And when that's tied to your money behaviors, it's so important to recognize, like, what you're feeling in the moment. So something that I do, especially with some of the couples that I work with, is try to understand where money and our money behavior, so what we do with money, what we choose to do with money, where that's connected with the emotional experience that we're having in that moment. And our emotions change a lot, but it's to have a better conversation, like with a spouse, you have to know where that other person's coming from. So I'll see if I'll lay this out really quickly. When it comes to our money, the way I see it is you can really do one of two things. You can save it and hold on to it, or you can spend it. And so you can save, you can spend, and you can do it for yourself or for your immediate family in mind, or you can do it with others in mind. And so it's like this horizontal axis and this vertical axis of save, spend, self, others. And we have these like 4 categories that we can fall into, and there's an emotional need in each of those. So if we're desiring, here's an example. If we're desiring to save money with ourselves in mind, we might be seeking security. I want to just feel secure and like I can feel the ground underneath my feet. Whereas my spouse might want to be spending money on others, you know, our kids or our grandchildren. And she might be seeking the need to feel connected and to feel loved and to have experiences with other people. Neither one of us are wrong in our emotions. I want to seek security. She wants to seek, you know, a connection. But what we want to do with our money, it couldn't be, you know, further apart. And then that's where arguments happen.
Right.
And so a lot of times with couples, it's like they try to get on the same page of what to do with their money. Should we save it? Should we spend it? I would say go a step deeper and try to identify what is the emotion that you're seeking to meet in that moment, and what is the emotion that your spouse is seeking to meet. And once you can clearly identify those, compromise is so much easier, but it has to come from a place of empathy, of understanding how the other person feels.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly that. Empathy is a huge word. So talk to me about COVID and what you've seen. So you don't do personal planning. You're more of a coach to your agents or your clients. So you don't do the portfolio reviews and all of that. But COVID, I know for my business, it came to a screeching halt because I do seminar workshop selling. So the Zoom, you know, meetings really were just not effective for me. Yeah. I don't know about you folks, but not having AUM money coming in every month. I've got my residual money, which is my PNC, my life and health. Yeah. My fixed index annuities are a big portion of it. Then I've got my partner that does the AUM money, which is, those of you listening, it's assets under management. So a advisor such as a Series 65 or securities advisor gets a percentage of the portfolio every single quarter, as long as that client stays, which is it's a nice opportunity to keep your business floating. When you have a business like mine that is first year commissions only, you constantly have to be prospecting. And that's the way I built my business on the life and health and Medicare. My son runs my internet term life insurance. So those of you that are listening, go to cotoinsurance.com for a life insurance quote. But he's fabulous, and it's all internet driven, and he's been doing that for 12 years. So COVID didn't affect him at all.
Mhm.
But for me, the mama bear, handling all my staff and this big overhead, I'm in Irvine, California, and the first floor, huge rent, $10,000 a month. So the overhead is stressful for me. I was like, I was in a fog for
Mhm.
March, April, May, going, okay, I got $40,000 a month going out every month in overhead, and the psychology behavior around that, I became very anxious,
Yeah.
sad, scared. And then I started putting my thinking cap on, thought, you're a survivor. You've been through situations before. We went through 2000, 2002. We went through 2008. Like, we have gone through stuff.
Yeah.
So, and my partner, Stevie, said, you know what? This is just another bump in the road. You got this. And all I needed to hear was that. Because
Yes.
when you're not feeling you got this, and the psychological behavior behind that was, I just needed a cheerleader going, you got this, Vic, go out there and do your
Mhm.
job.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it was like the light bulb turned on, and I went out and did it
Yeah.
because I had his support, or I had my staff support. And they were like, Vicki, you're the best leader there is.
Mm.
But if I didn't have that support, and if somebody is out there trying to figure it out on their own, we as humans need the behavior, the psychology behavior of saying, you got this.
Yeah.
You got this. You've been through health issues. You've been through divorce.
Yes.
You've been through this. You've been through embezzlement. Yeah. I mean, I was embezzled by a great staff member of over
Oh.
$300,000. So, it's not been an easy road. People tend to think on the Housewives of Orange County that I was like, oh, handed everything. No,
Right.
no. It's hard work. It's scared times that you're making the right decisions on everything. But when I lay my head down at night, I really feel somewhat of a sense of peace, that
Mm.
almost being at 60, that
Mhm.
I don't have any regrets. I mean, I'm a big saver.
Yeah.
Those of you that are spending everything you make and buying bigger houses that you can afford, stop. You need to just stop, because who would have ever predicted COVID to be happening? I mean, the credit card debt, we're working with debt.com with a lot of our clients now. And,
Yeah.
the debt coming in is increased from pre-COVID, but when they came into it, they had an enormous amount of debt,
Yeah.
so the behavior and the psychology is keeping up with the Joneses, and, I need to have a newer car, and I need to have all this stuff. So I think we as advisors have a huge responsibility to teach our clients and our friends and our family that shit can happen. I mean,
Yes.
shit can happen. Like
Yeah.
this year, who would have ever freaking predicted it?
No kidding.
So, but what helped us, you and me, and I'm sure
Mhm.
those that are responsible, is we had a safety net to fall back
Yeah.
on. And so I
Yeah.
did. So
Well, I don't envy you as a business owner in the stress that you had to take on, about a year ago, almost to the day. Here we are recording, late March, early April.
right.
And so, yeah, a year ago, when you're looking, down the barrel of this gun of this pandemic and the economy shutting down, and having to, count on certain revenue to run your business and to pay your people and to do a good job. I don't envy that. I know our business owner went through similar stress, and it's just that's part of being a business owner. And there's great perks. There's also great amounts of stress that falls on you. So, but what's interesting to me, or what stands out about what you were sharing, is it just took someone to kind of snap you out of that negative mindset.
Yep.
But to back up even a bit, you feeling that stress or that dread is how you're wired to feel, how all of us are wired to feel. Our brains are, at the end of the day, our brain's number one job is to keep us alive. It's a survival mechanism. And historically, like threats that we could encounter, day to day, I'm talking thousands of years ago, if we're out rummaging for food and we hear this rustling in the leaves behind us, it's probably just the wind. But that 1 out of 100 chance that it's a saber-toothed tiger,
Right.
we need to be able to react to that instantly and get out of that. And it's like the world around us has changed. We don't have those same threats, but our brain hasn't really evolved. It hasn't had that software upgrade that like our iPhones get. And so when there's stress in our lives, like our brain just kind of automatically goes to, this could end us. This could kill you. This could be, the end of everything. And so, but it just took that friend of yours to say, or that business partner to say, you've got this, Vicki. This has happened before. You've got this. And it's like, it allows us to snap out and kind of get some perspective on the whole thing and say, yes, that we will be okay. We'll continue. This isn't a life or death situation, but it sure feels like that in the moment.
Yeah. And I thought it was only going to last a few months. So here we are 12 months later, right?
Right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
who would have ever, but I also, when you said that, it's not just COVID for me, it's resetting January 1 of every year. Like I got to reset my calendar. Like what is going to be my marketing plan? What is going to be my staff looking like? What can I give them a promotion? I want to keep my staff. So I even gave my staff bonuses this year for just putting up with this chaos. I let them leave at 3 o'clock every day. I gave them a bonus. I said, just hold tight. Don't leave me. And we'll weather through this. So, I think when we as business owners and professionals, we need to really rely on the people that help us. I travel a lot. I bought a place in Puerto Vallarta of all things to do during this pandemic, which I shouldn't have done, but we're coming out of it and I just enjoy it there. And that was my place to go for retirement, and to have a safety net, of just no mortgage and cheap living. And so that was something that was on my horizon. So I believe the people that are listening is to write your goals down. I don't know if you're a big goal believer. I journal,
yes.
I journal and write my goals daily. The most successful people from my history of doing a lot of research on psychology is journaling and goal setting. So I have a board right here. I have all my goals for the year. They're handicapped a little bit right now, but I'll get better.
Well, I'd love to jump in. I'm a huge vision board advocate. And by the way, Vicki, I am a part of the Facebook group, and I just want to shower some praise on you. I think it's such a phenomenal group in the community that is coming together. And the content that you or your team is putting out in that group is so just practical and helpful and simple, but in a good way where people can start to build some momentum in their lives. And so I know even talking about like vision boarding as a part of goal setting, has been a focus of yours. My wife and I, every year in November, we will go away for a night or two. And, I live in the Phoenix area, so we like to go up to Sedona, spend a night or two away, and just spend half of that time building our vision board for the following year and setting our intentions and even coming up with a word or a phrase that is going to encapsulate, our desires for the coming year. So I'm such a big fan of goal setting and vision boards. And
So I'm going to ask you a question on that. So I've done vision boards. I didn't do one last year because I was kind of in a weird place, but I've always put them in a quadrant. And then I've done like my personal health, and then I've done my business, and then I've done, what I want to focus on, whether it's my faith or, so do you do 4 quadrants and then put your word in the middle, or what is your
That's interesting that you're intentional with that. Now that I think about it, we kind of do. It's not as structured as that, but the way my wife and I do it is we have our magazines and we set them aside and we go through them and we just kind of cut out the images that inspire us as we're going through them. And then from there, we kind of categorize them into different piles. And then on the vision board itself, we'll glue them or tape them in areas together. So it's not just a random, assortment of images, but they are categorized like that. So absolutely.
So we're both doing the same thing, just a little bit different. So a lot of people that are listening have heard about vision boards. So we've heard about them. They're a way to manifest your reality. So being on a reality show for 15 years, it was very difficult because I couldn't really relay back to the viewers what my truth was, because it was an edited version. It was me screaming at somebody saying I look like a pig, or that I've slept with 3 women, and I'm like, I've never slept with anybody in my life. Like I'm a one-man woman. So when you get that handed to you and the cameras are on you and you're a type A strong bitch that I am, I had to react in a way that was impactful for the viewers to know they're lying. I'm telling the truth. So that was an interesting thing. But when I would go home, I would journal about it, and I would say, you know what, this is what happened today when I was filming. I hope they don't air it because it wasn't the truth. And then of course they do, and they add their little music to it and all that stuff. And then I was like, oh my God, that the people, my clients are going to think this is the truth, or what have you. So the vision boards and the journaling for me kept me grounded, because I could go back and go, okay, in March when I was filming this, it's now September when it's airing. This is what I was feeling. So it would help me in my blog. It would help me in different feelings. So I think that those of you that are listening, one nugget I want you to take away from Dan and I is manifesting your reality. It's ask, believe, receive, that type of mentality is, whether you're spiritual or not, I pray, and sometimes I think God has it's disconnected me from him. So I'm like, you're not listening to me. I need some help down here.
Yeah.
But in his perfect timing will be his answers, right?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about the vision board too is, and by the way, so you were doing either vision boards or some kind of journaling or kind of keeping yourself centered throughout the whole progression of the show.
Correct.
That's really impressive. That's awesome.
Correct. And I could go back to season 1 because I went through a bad marriage, and it was the only thing that got me through it, and raising my kids on my own, and then getting remarried, and my husband didn't like them, and it was this whole. I was thinking I was going crazy. So I was like, if I can put it down on paper and realize that it's not me, that I'm loving, kind, and empathetic and want to be a great mother and great wife, I then could go back and say, okay, the marriage dissolved because of this, So that was good for me. And so we don't know what life is going to bring us, but if you can go back in time and see that, then that's important. So I think for me, that was super good.
I love that. And it just the intention that you from which you live your life is really apparent, and that's cool. And what a bizarre experience to have, content of yourself, video recorded content out there in the hands of editors and producers, and to not have control over. I mean, good for you to keep your sanity.
Your life away. I have a sign. I'm moving from my big house that you've probably seen on the show to a smaller house, because that was on my vision board to downsize when my kids were older and raised. And Brianna's not coming back much. I mean, 1 or 2 times a year. I don't need this 6,000 square foot house for me. Yeah. But I was going through the grotto, which you probably know about, and I had a sign out there that said, somebody gave it to me for a birthday present, said, avoid reality at all costs. And I thought, do I keep that or do I throw that in the garbage? But when you think about reality TV, reality in our real life. So some of you that are listening have gone through some bumps. And the good news is, as Dan says, we have tomorrow, we have today to make changes. And this behavioral mythology between us and finance is so important. So I want to touch more on finance, because you know me, I love money and numbers. So
sure. Yes.
Give our listeners some tools that they can implement in their life that will help them.
Well, maybe it's just because we're talking about it, but back to like a vision board or goal setting, it's be very clear with it and write it down, or even, the next step is that vision board. And here's why. At least scientifically speaking, is our brains tend to respond a little bit more to images than they do to words. So like you can write a to-do list, or you can write your goals down. But if you can, attach some images to that, it tends to stick in our brains, our subconscious, a little bit longer. An example of this, like we have a region in our brain that kind of focuses on certain things. There's just so much out there. It's hard to focus on every single thing that's out there. But like when you buy a new car, or when you're about to buy a new car, you probably see that car more often on the roads and on the freeways, because you're kind of subconsciously looking for it. And it's very similar with like a vision board. When you put something out there, you identify what you're pursuing, your subconscious starts to look for that a little bit more. And what that can do, it's not magic, but what it can do is it can kind of shift your behaviors towards the opportunities to meeting those goals. And so having something very clear and visible, like a vision board, is a great first step, especially if you're in a relationship. So if it's like you and a spouse, or you and a partner, is to put some images out of, what you want your life to be like. I'm okay with the material goods, the house, the dream car, the dream vacation, those kinds of things. But I would say even more so of like, what you want to wake up and feel like every day, and what are some images that capture that. So all that to say, back to like practical steps around finance, is you have to identify what your goals are in the first place before you start, making progress towards them. And so being able to see them is a huge, huge first step.
Yeah, that's good that you said that, because I'm a visual learner. So we talked about the Series 65. I could go to a class all day at Kaplan or what have you, and the instructor can be up there. But the minute he starts drawing or giving me an image of the bond portfolio, then I'm like, okay, got it. And then I get to test. I know I'm going to get that right. So some are visual and some are audio. So I'm a visual learner. So if I can put it down and I see what you're saying, manifest that,
Yeah.
whatever you want your future to look like. Cause we can make our future. We all control our own destiny,
Right.
you know?
And then to add on to that, it have clearly defined goals. But stick with them. Like, again, back to our brain and our hardwiring. Forgive me, I'm a psychologist. I can't help myself.
Love it.
We're kind of wired to be more in the present. We're trying to survive each day. We tend to do things that are pleasurable, that bring pleasure in our lives, and we avoid things that bring pain. And so when we are navigating through our day, if we're not intentional or thoughtful, we just kind of do the things that feel good. So we might overeat, or we might overspend, and we avoid the things that are painful. But we have to be better about having longer term goals. So having like a savings goal, not just for today, but by the end of the year, this is how much I'd like to have saved, or this is how much of my debt I'd like to have paid off, or this is the percentage of my salary that I'd like to be putting away for retirement, and having it be very tangible, but also have it be a good kind of a future goal that in a way that we're able to measure some progress towards that goal. Because if we don't do that, our day to day, we're not waking up thinking about like, oh, how can I maximize my 401k at my job? I'm not thinking that way. You have to be more intentional about that.
I'm not going to do it. I always had encouraged back in the day when I did a lot of speaking to 40 and 50-year-olds that when you get an increase at your career, put that increase away. Just say that you've been living off of the other 5% less or whatever your number is that you increased. And I had people come back to me and said, gosh, I just saved $20,000 and I didn't even miss it. Or I saved $50,000. And you look at the 10 and 20-year legacy and let that grow.
Yeah.
Inflation is going to hurt them a little bit, but still, if you can live within your means.
Yeah.
I'm buying, just personally, I just sold my house. It's public, $3 million. And I bought a house for $1 million.
Yes. Yeah.
And people are like, why are you doing that? At the end of the day, I want no debt. It'll be paid for. I had very little debt on my other house, and I'm putting a lot in the bank. So for my retirement, but it doesn't look all fancy and nice. I'm, make it like a jewel box, but it's small, and I remember my realtor telling me, you are being responsible with money. You are not living in California where everybody's got to get higher houses, bigger houses. And I thought at the end of the day, it's a house. I'm not raising my children here. I want to be able to travel to Mexico, go to Illinois to see my daughter, go to Hawaii to see my son. I want a lock and go house. And this will do it. It's just a little scary for me because I've always been about image,
Yeah.
Oh, people are going to think I'm broke, and I'm not. But it's a big deal. It's an ego thing for me.
Oh, totally. Well, and you're talking about a lot with clients. It's like the more money you make or the greater your net worth, we tend to move the goalposts back further and further. So we're always seeking more. It's like we're not satisfied. And so it's so easy to do that. And you kind of touched on it. The big part of that is the social comparison. We're not just doing it for ourselves. We tend to do it more when we're looking around us. What are our neighbors doing? What's our brother-in-law doing? And that's what really influences us. I have to ask you if you'll allow me. I mean, I talk about lifestyle creep all the time with my clients. I'm speaking, with someone who is on, the Housewives of Orange County. I mean, I can't think of a show or even a channel that really broadcasts like luxurious lifestyle more than what you've gone through. What was it like for you over the 15 years on the show, feeling like you're keeping up with the Joneses? Is that something that was hard on you? What was that like for you? It
was interesting that you asked that, because when I got on 15 years ago, I was still in my same house. I didn't upgrade the house. I was making a lot of money on the Housewives. Gina Keogh lived down the street from me. She stayed in the same house. She lasted 5 or 6 or 7 years. I don't remember. But when they started bringing other housewives in that were fancier and had bigger things, I started feeling insecure because I had the biggest house. I had the biggest house. So like Heather Dubrow, for instance, I can't keep up with her. She's got $20 million house. I mean, it's just out of my league. But I did feel like I was the big dog. And I felt proud of it as a single woman. And then all of a sudden I felt like, okay, does that really matter? What matters is my peace, my happiness, my retirement, my life. So I really shut it down quickly. And I thought, be grateful and thankful for what I have. And I did. I became very humble. And I saved a lot of my housewife money. I didn't buy anything new. I did renovate my kitchen, but it wasn't like I went out and, got a, $10 million house. I stayed grounded and rooted to my beliefs, which are live within your means. And and the houseboats could go away at any time. And, you know, they fired me last year. So that was not an easy day for me.
Yeah.
But I looked at back even if I said, you know what, nobody's ever been on a reality show that long. You did a good ride. We just want a younger group. And I'm like, I can't change my date of birth. You know, my date of birth.
Yeah.
And I was born in 1962. I can't change it to be 72 or 82. It's 62. So when I started getting insecure and fearful of what is my next journey, I'm super excited about this podcast with Lux Media, and I'm super excited to meet people like you, and then carry my knowledge forward to the Financially Fabulous with Vicki Facebook group, and the Debt.com partnership that we have, and just trying to now take this fame and utilize it to the better.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for answering that question. I was so curious to ask you, and I think that is why, especially like my wife is such a big fan of you. She knows that you were the one, you know, throughout the whole series. I mean, you were the hustler. You were, you know, working. You were building a business. You had a business. You're running a business. Whatever we want to say. I mean, my wife really identifies with that, and I think was inspired by that. She's in PR and marketing, and she's like she does all of my PR. She's my wifeager, which I love having.
I love it.
But it's like seeing someone like yourself who can have it all and pursue it all was really inspiring for her. But I just had to ask you about the pressures of that over time. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Big pressure. In fact, it cost my marriage with Don. If you would be married to Don, one of the things I've talked about publicly many times is when we got asked to do the show, I sat down with Don. I said, you know, we're not going to get paid anything. It's 4 weeks of filming. They're going to follow my life and what I do at the home. Because at that time I had a home-based business. And he's like, people that go on TV, they end up getting divorced. I'm like, we're never getting divorced. We got this. Yeah. And the pressures of me traveling, going to New York, being the big dog, I probably demasculated him a little bit. You know, is it emasculated or demasculated? Whatever the word is.
Yeah, I think it goes either way.
I felt, and it was a false sense of, I got this, you don't, you know, and I heard him, and for that, I'm forever sad about it. But I realized that being on a reality TV show, almost everybody on my show has gotten divorced, except the DeBros, but almost everybody has gotten divorced.
Wow.
So the pressures of the show, financially, bringing in that type of paycheck, some of these girls have never worked, and they're bringing in $300,000-$400,000 a year now.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic, and it's going to be cut off like that.
Yes.
So, I mean, now it's way higher than that, but when you look at that, some of these women had never had a job. Yeah. Now they're bringing in more than their husbands, and now they're feeling powerful, and now they're feeling they got this. So it's the cycle of the stress and pressure of the show does fall into the family at the end of the day when we're, you know, it's.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a dynamic, you know, the husband, wife in a traditional marriage, you know, kind of have their identity and their roles and the kids. And like, there's this homeostasis that happens. And then when there's a sudden change in that, I mean, some are able to adjust to it, but a lot more, you just see kind of the dynamics break apart, and it's sad, but I think that's the case. And
when John married me, I always was working. I was always had my career, but not to the level. I was running my business and doing the show and doing press. I mean, I was never home, and you got to spend time together in order for it to flourish. Yes. So I know we went outside for a minute about psychological behavior, but I love talking to you. I think that you are a wealth of knowledge, and I think our listeners will, you know, get some good information from you. If you want to share anything regarding social media, or feel free to do that, and then they can look you up and.
I think the easiest way is Instagram. Dr. Dan Pallesen is my handle on Instagram. I do have a Facebook professional page as well, but that's probably the easiest way. I have a podcast. It's called the Behavioral Wealth Podcast, and my tagline is the pursuit of wealth, health, and happiness. So I love talking about these things. I was so thrilled to get the invite, Vicki, to have this chat with you, and it didn't surprise me. I'm like, of course, Vicki is still out there hustling and pushing in a good way, the agenda of financial literacy. And I love being a part of it. So thank you so much.
Well, feel free to
for having
invite
me
me on your podcast. So
I would love to. Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll switch the tables, okay?
That'd be so fun.
Sincerely, thank you. Say hi to your wife for me.
Yes.
And I'll look you up next time I'm in the Scottsdale area. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Have a
Vicki.
good day. Okay. Take care. Bye.
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 Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being. Supports muscle strength and endurance. Cognitive function. Powerful liver support. Energy. Helps blood sugar regulation. Superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the marketplace.